Woo-hoo-hoo! Unicross back again with a part 2 of my commentary series. This time we will be tackling through Chapter 2, The Trap. I will be explaining my thought process of how I fixed this Last Airbender movie in just version 1 because that's the only one I have finished at the moment. And for those of you who are just discovering this commentary series, I have been working on an ambitious re-edit of the Last Airbender film for a good many years, and it's very close to completion. There is a finished version online you can go to now. And Chapter 2 is the second part of 3 parts for the edit. So we will talk about Chapter 2 in this one and get straight into 3 in the last part of this series. So there's a lot that I'm about to talk here right away at the opening of Chapter 2. This is where the majority of the changes happen. So for those of you who don't remember, in the original film, or who try to forget, in the original film, Team Avatar goes to an Earthbender prison, and they free the prisoners there, and then they go on to free Earthbender villages from Fire Nation tyranny, which is nice, but there was a problem with that segment of the original movie, and that is that, one, the acting is freaking terrible, and two, there's a lot of plot holes in that, particularly why do we have Earthbenders imprisoned at a Earth camp instead of a metal camp like we had in the cartoon? It never made sense. It still doesn't make sense. And I could not fix that scene. I couldn't fix the acting either. I couldn't fix the atrocious earthbending. I was able to cut out the scene where the 6-7 Earthbenders are lifting a rock, which was nice, but no matter how many changes I did to the Earthbender segment of the film, I just could not fix it. And I managed to trim it down, but then it was just going quicker. The pacing was off. The acting was still bad. The plot holes were still there, at least the ones I couldn't fix. So I ran into a conundrum, and I had to ask myself, do I decide to just do the best I can with the Earthbender segment and then move on to the Blue Spirit stuff that the film does, or do I try to write over it? And I eventually chose to do what you see here, the Chapter 2 montage. And a huge reason I did this is because I was having to make up for the exposition that was done in the Earthbender camp segment that is now no longer there. And one of the key pieces of exposition that the Earthbender scene was doing is that Aang is revealing, I am the Avatar. And because that scene's no longer there, I ran into a conundrum of, okay, when will Katara and Sokka find out for sure that he's the Avatar? Because Graham tells them that, and it's implied that they believe he's the Avatar already at this point, but I still wanted to solidify that a little bit more through the narrations that you hear of Katara telling us that Aang revealed that he ran away from the air nomads because he didn't want to be the Avatar. And so right away that explains two things. One, it solidifies that his reveal that I am the Avatar, sadly off screen, but then it also solidifies that Aang has opened up to Katara now about why he ran away from the air nomads, because that's another thing that he talks about in the Earth story, but because that story is gone, you got to find a different place to put that. So that's why I have at least the first 30 seconds of this here. So the first, or maybe first 15, 20 seconds. And by the way, all this footage that you see right here is from behind the scenes. Some of it's reversed, and I did this scene just so that we have a little bit more of a somber moment where Aang is mourning Monkey Otso a bit more. Instead of just moving on, let's see a bit of his emotional reaction. Let's try to connect with him just a little with the very limited stuff that we have. So this is behind the scenes. And it's not a good shot. This is a very cropped in shot from behind the scenes, but what we see is nice. We see Katara and Aang bonding a bit. We see them hugging, and that alone, that's more expression than what we frankly get in the original film. And so having this nice little bit, it's really nice. It's really nice that they're growing, and we actually get to see a bit of that now, whereas this was cut all together in the original. And then we cut right here. This is a stock footage shot, and I put Southern Earth Kingdom. I replaced it. And I wanted this montage to be very, very important. There's a lot of problems that if you skip over the Earthbender camp scene into Blue Spirit, you know that there's a lot of things that still need to be addressed. And so one of the things that I know we had to make up for was the fact that Katara, that Team Avatar, they're just not bonding enough. There's not as much growth that we're seeing. When they're freeing the Earthbender villages, we're seeing a bit of bonding in the sense that they're working together to overcome the Fire Nation and to help other people. But because that is cut in this version, how do we make up for that? And I chose for this next portion, or the rest of the montage, I chose to establish that they're bonding by Katara training Aang through for the next however many weeks that happen. So we get a bit of bonding by Katara establishing that she is now Aang's teacher. As you see here, she is training him to be a waterbender. Though we don't get much bonding with the two with Sokka. That is a downside, so we don't get as much Sokka, sadly, but that's why I chose to do this kind of direction, is we're now getting training. Aang is slowly fulfilling his destiny. We're getting straight into it. And in the process, in the meantime, Zuko is also getting his training so that he can have a better chance at trying to take out Aang when they meet again in Chapter 3. And for those who followed the channel for a while, this was going to be how Chapter 1 originally ended, was Zuko just training. I chose to put it here instead because it's a nice parallel to how Aang and Zuko, they're both growing in terms of strength, and they're both becoming more formidable. So that's why I'm cutting back and forth between the two, and I'm trying to remind audiences as well that Zuko is out there. He is hunting Aang, but he also knows that he has training he needs. So he's preparing to hunt Aang by training instead of just looking around in Earth villages. And then we cut to Zhao here. Now this is a shot that is taken from another part of the movie where right here he's at the Northern Water Tribe in this shot, but I've repurposed it and I've also flipped it to make it look different. I've repurposed it now so that it comes across as Zhao is hunting for Aang. So right now this is supposed to allude to Zhao is prepping. He's behind the scenes and he's getting that trap set up for us. We don't know what it is yet, but we're being reminded he's out there too. He's also a threat besides Zuko. And by going from here to here, it's implied that Zhao has found Avatar, and he has sent these soldiers right here to hunt them down. Another big change, where, for those who don't remember, or if, of course, choose to block it out of your memories, which is understandable. Originally, what is happening in this scene, the Fire Nation is hunting an Earthbender child. But, of course, the Earth stuff is gone, so how does this get reworked? Well, in this version, the line the Fire Nation soldiers say is, "That child is being arrested." And when they paint Earthbender kid in the original, but I cut to Aang, show, okay, they're pointing at Aang now. And so once again, the film is bringing more attention to Aang's value. It's bringing more attention that Aang is a character that the Fire Nation really wants to hunt down. He is that much of a threat to them. And so this is also a reverse shot here, where in the original film, he's looking like this, but then he's looking at towards the camera. In this one, however, I flipped the purpose so that Aang is now looking at the soldiers and then looking at Team Avatar, at Sokka and Katara. That child is being arrested. So this is all repurposed. Now do that, and then I cut it down a little bit so that Katara waterbends. And the reason I cut here is because there's no footage of her actually taking down these soldiers. For those who don't know or don't remember, she throws that water at Sokka and screws up the whole thing. So the reason I cut it there in a crossfade is because that's really all I can do with that, and it is implied by cutting away and seeing Katara and Sokka not captured, it is implied that they actually took those soldiers down, and it also helps establish that Katara might be a formidable waterbender at this point. And then we cut back to Zuko. He's still training. It's implied that while they're training, he's training. While they grow stronger, he grows stronger. And then I put Zhao, I make him a little visible here to show that Zhao is still tracking them. Like, this is the second instance now where we are shown that Zhao, he's doing a good job tracking them because he found them earlier. He's not losing them. He's still going after them. We're still building up to that moment. And then we have Zuko going to rest after a hard day's work of training. And then this is to imply, okay, they've landed in a new area, even though the trees are the same. And this is a nice shot here. This was from behind the scenes again. And so what's happening in this scene is in the original film, and when I say original film, I mean the very original version of this story. What was going on here is Aang found Katara's necklace when Zuko stole it from her. Yeah, the original film is very different. I'm not going to ramble on that. I would just look it up yourselves. But this was supposed to happen in the 2.5-hour version that Shyamalan originally filmed. But I found the footage of it, and I decided to repurpose the shot of him putting Katara's necklace on because I'm trying to show that this is a team that's growing, that they're getting along with each other, that there's emotion being expressed as best as I can with as little of footage that I have. And so right here you see she's smiling. Aang is also kind of smiling. You can't really see it. He's supposed to be smiling a little bit. But I cut around it so that he's looking back and he sees that, okay, he is smiling a little bit. He sees that these two are a little bit. It's also alluding to Katara and Aang falling in love. I was just putting that little bit in there, to a little bit of fan service, but it's fan service that would have helped the story if this had a sequel. So a little bit of Katang. And then this is from a deleted scene, and this is heavily recolored because the original coloring for this was red and weird yellow. I've colorized this scene entirely to look like it's in the same forest. So that's where I shot from of Sokka doing that weird eyebrow thing. And we get a few lines cut here where Aang says, "We're near the air temple. Can I go there, please, please, Mama?" And one line of dialogue is cut here where Sokka says, "We started a rebellion." Of course, I cut that because in the movie, we never see a rebellion in general. It's weird for Sokka to say that, and so I cut that line out just to be like, okay, there is no rebellion. We never see this in any version of the movie. So it fixes up that little plot point, and it also keeps things simple. Once again, we're keeping the focus on Aang. Fire Nation Colony, that's new text from me. Cropped in shot. This is also cropped in. It's not final. I might go back and uncrop it. I'm not sure. This is a nice scene here, but I initially thought about cutting this or heavily trimming it down, but this is one of the few scenes we get where Iroh and Zuko are talking, and I like it a lot. It's not great, but it's something. The only difference really here is like I've slightly changed the coloring, but it's about the same as what it was. We are coming up on a nice change here where Zuko, anytime now, there we go. He brings the boy over. So we're about to get Zuko's backstory where he fights Fire Lord Ozai and gets the scar. And one notable change here is that I hid the Fire Lord's face to be consistent with the fact that his face is being hidden. I also cut Azula out of the flashback for the same reason I've been cutting a lot of exposition throughout this film is I'm condensing it, keeping the focus very simple. It's easier for audiences to digest what's going on. You're getting rid of all these extra expositional elements that we just don't need because we never got a sequel, so it condenses the focus of the story a bit more. And like I said, there it is. The Fire Lord's face is way, way more hidden. And that was hard to do, but I was also trying to make it mirror the cartoon because we sort of get that kind of shot in Season 1 where Ozai is just basically pitch black. You don't see anything on him except a little mustache. And so I was trying to copy that aspect of the cartoon a bit as well, but not overdo it. It does look weird in live action. And so it moves quicker. We don't have Azula anymore. And so the focus is completely on Zuko. We're not all setting up extra stuff.
We'll catch him soon.
And this is all about the same. I think this is different. So this shot here happened later in the movie when Aang is bending the wave with his weird hands. And the reason I put this shot in is because the previous shot we were shown was Monkey Atso walking around, like making sure the airbenders are okay, but there's not much emotion, there's not much facial. We don't get these kind of facials that we do here. We get to humanize the airbenders a bit more so that they're not just, even though they're corpses now, they were kids. And we get to see what they look like. We get to see how happy they were. We get to see that they were kids, that they were alive, and that they were people that he cared about. I don't know which one. One of these is Aang. Right, there he is. And so I found that to be more effective than just the shot that we got originally where it's Monkey Atso walking around, but you don't really see his face in the camera, and you don't really see the faces of the that much, and you get nice laughter, and then you get laughter when you're shown the dead bodies to show that, once again, these were people at one point. These were kids that lived. And so now it makes a bit more sense why Aang is a little more upset in this scene, even though he's not showing it much, because it's more traumatizing to think about the kids and thinking about that emotion, thinking about that laughter, than just getting no sound at all, than having the kids hidden from the camera. So I was trying to elevate that emotion a bit more, and the laughter is just laughter sounds I found online, so that is not actually from the original movie. That was a sound effect I added in. And there's Master Oogway from Kung Fu Panda coming up. So a few lines that are cut here where, as I keep saying, we're getting the ball rolling, we're removing needless exposition. So the conversation's a little bit shorter and to the point. And I think I do have that. There's a little bit of coloring differences, but not much else with this scene. And we're just now getting to what I think is one of the few good scenes of the original movie, and I think this is actually probably one of the best scenes in the edit altogether, because largely because what I do here is I fade to flashbacks, which was not in the original movie, because originally we linger on this shot for a long time, and it's a nice scene, but we're being told all this stuff, but we're not shown. Like, what are the 4 toys that Aang's talking about? Not that we need to know, but it's more effective if we see what he saw, if we see what he's talking about. So, boom, we now see these are the 4 toys Aang chose. And we see his people. We get a bit more time with his dead loved ones. And then we fade back to here. So it's allowing us to kind of to see more things than just linger on this shot for a long time. So it helps the audience to see a bit more and to establish, to remind people of that connection, that he told us that Matsu was like a father to him, but now we're actually seeing it way earlier in the movie versus seeing it towards the end of the movie like how we originally had it. So now we're getting this much earlier, and we're not just being told something, we're being shown something, which is very important. And
I didn't bow back.
Yeah, so I didn't bow back, and we get to actually see him. He doesn't bow back, he leaves. So nice, very nice example of show versus tell. And if you're going to tell something, it's usually, a lot of times it's nice to see what the character's talking about so that we can understand a bit more of what he's going through mentally. And this is the trap. Chapter 2's title, the entire chapter built up to this trap, and I would say now it makes a little more sense in this edit than it did in the original movie, because we got to see Zhao earlier on in this edit hunting down Aang, preparing for Aang, being really good at it. We saw him send those soldiers out to hunt Aang, so if he can do it before, he can do it again. Because I was trying to fix a plot hole, well, a sort of big question, really, a lingering question of how did Zhao know that Aang was going to go to this temple? Well, now that we have the montage, we can now imply that he's smart, that he was following Aang very well. That's why, is that throughout this whole process, he's looking at a map, and he's trying to figure out where they're going. And so we can now assume that Zhao made a very good educated guess in this version. because we're actually shown that he is hunting Aang and that he's trying to figure out where Aang's going. Whereas in the original movie, we weren't shown any of that. He just made an educated guess that he might go to this temple. But now there's a bit more reason behind it.
I will stop them.
So the trap makes a bit more sense in this. It's not perfect, it still has issues. And we're back to the blue-colored spirit world. I mean, look how nice that looks. Nice little dragon there. And we're coming up on
Will I stop them?
a flipped shot. This here is a flipped shot. And you can tell by the tattoos, they are actually, it's pointing the opposite direction now. So that's a little mistake I couldn't fix. But the reason I flipped this shot here is Aang, in the original, Aang is looking to his left, but Zhao is on his right. So it was weird. I couldn't figure out why he was looking left. Maybe he was looking at the staff Zhao was holding. So instead I flipped it so that Aang, as you can see, is now looking off to his right, which makes sense because right here, see? Or I'm sorry, no. He's looking to his right and Zhao is on the left. Yeah, you get what I'm saying. He's now looking at Zhao better. So it's a very, very small, subtle fix that I did there that people usually don't think about. And so now we're on to Blue Spirit. Originally, I was going to have Blue Spirit music in this, but it just seemed cheesy and campy, so I removed it in the final all-in-one cut. And you hear sound effects that I found online where Zuko's killing the men. They're not entirely convincing, but in the original film there was a weird snake caterpillar noise that just seemed weird. I think you still hear a little bit of it in here, but I never understood what those sounds meant. So that's another little change I made there, is I cut the weird noises out that Shyamalan had and replaced them with sword noises of Zuko killing people. And yep, so this is all the same. Slight coloring changes, but nothing else really. And so, yep, we cut straight to here. We get right into the action, sort of. And we're now... There's a slight zoom effect that I use here. And the reason for that is so I can hide the Fire Nation soldier that comes up there. Maybe I'll change that in the final. And then we cut to Zhao. He's now realized at this moment that the prisoner is freed. And the reason I put this scene in this spot of the edit is because I want a way to cut around the 5-7 minute fight that we get after this, because during this shot in the next few minutes we get a lot of action of Aang and the Blue Spirit fighting in the original. A lot of that action was crap and the choreography was not great. It made the Fire Nation soldiers look a little too stupid, and when you do that it's hard to take the enemy seriously when you make them buffoon. So I wanted to cut this as an excuse to just cut away from action. I needed something, and so I put the scene here, and you hear sound effects. Those are added in sound effects I did so that while they're fighting outside, this is where he's at, so that's why he's not up at the top quite yet. And also, I found it pretty effective for Zhao. So even though he realizes the Avatar is now freed, and even though he's hearing sounds in the background, he is undeterred in this. And by adding in the sounds now of his men being hurt out there and him not showing any emotion, I think that elevates his character a bit more, in that in the most stressful of times he can still compose himself, which you'll see another example of that later. But it's my attempt at trying to make Zhao look a bit more formidable, that even though the prisoner just escaped, and even though his men are being slaughtered outside and they're very close to escaping, he is calm and he is collective. And then we cut to here. I chose to keep and I wanted to remove the slow-mo, but I can kind of see why Shyamalan kept it in here. So we get this shot. The only difference really is the Wilhelm scream I added in, just for fun. So it didn't need to be added. And we will see Zhao. We will now see another example of Zhao looking more calm and collected right here. Original, Zhao asks, "Why are you doing this? Who are you?" to the Blue Spirit. And the reason I removed that line, as I said earlier, is I'm wanting Zhao to be more calm, more collective. And if you look here, swords are pointed at Aang, and we cut to this reverse shot of him raising his hand up, but he's not talking. And I don't want to keep repeating it too much, but he's calm, he's worried, but he's not showing it. He's showing more calmness than he did in the previous movie. He's not freaking out as much. And so there's an effect into him being quiet, and he's thinking. You have him thinking, okay, he's thinking of a plan right now instead of worried about whether Aang's going to die. So just another nice little touch of trying to make the villain more imposing than he was in the previous film. And there's a dub that I do right here. It's not, it's really not good, but here's my line.
Are we letting him get away, Commander?
God, that's bad. Why do I have this line at all? Well, because originally the soldier says, "Is he a spirit?" Which is stupid, because there's no reason to think of this guy as a spirit, as Zuko as a spirit. And so instead, I have the soldier say, "Are we letting him get away, Commander?" Because that's a more reasonable thing to ask, and it matches the lips pretty closely. And it makes, as I say, it makes the Fire Nation soldiers look a little more competent, which is a huge task, trying to make the villains look much more competent than the original movie. And I think this Chapter 2 does a pretty good job of illustrating that, of giving that sense by cutting out the stupid action, by cutting out the weird, bad choreography, and by making the soldier say, "Are we letting him get away?" instead of asking, "Hey, is that a spirit?" like a dummy. And another big change here coming up. Appa flying in. So this is a darkened shot of what we just saw earlier. It is a reused take of Aang and Appa arriving at the temple. I made it dark to, it's not, it needs a little more work, but I made this change because in the original, Aang escapes. He basically he drags Zuko's body and walks away with him in the original. But how does he get away? How does he get so far away from the Fire Nation soldiers? And how is it that he was able to venture so many miles away to a weird mountain range or whatever and put Zuko's body where he put it? And so I decided to put Appa here so that way, one, Aang has a better mode of transportation to get to where he needs to go. Number two, it gives Appa something to do in this movie because he didn't have much to do previously. And, as you hear right here, it scares the Fire Nation soldiers. Fire Nation soldiers are going to be more scared of a weird beast noise than they are of a bunch of wind blowing in their face.
What is this?
And it makes this line, it makes Zhao a bit more competent here, because in the original film, what is all this wind? Well, Aang's a freaking airbender, you dumbass. But now it's different. The context is different. Now he's wondering, what is that noise? Because these soldiers have not seen a bison in 100 years, at least if you've watched the cartoon. So like, it makes sense to cartoon watchers a bit more too. This is a new shot, new sound effects with the water flowing. I added that in. The reason I changed the to what you see here is that in the original it was a mountain range, but it's a weird spot to leave Zuko's body, and then for him to walk all the way back to Iroh. So I wanted to change it to a river. I chose this specific shot because Zuko, it is established at this point that Zuko's ship is parked alongside a river bay, and that the Fire Nation colony that Iroh is at a place that's near a river. And so that's why I chose this shot, is to give a sense of, okay, he might have parked Zuko's body somewhere nearby, might have Ubered him like an hour away, whereas in the original movie he Ubered him at some desert spot. And there's just no way he's gonna have to do Zuko would have had to do a lot of walking. A little jumbly here, where it cuts from that bit I'm a little going from this shot to this shot. It's a bit iffy. I might work on that more. But then now we've established that Zuko has walked all the way back to Iroh, and we're basically resetting what we've just experienced in Chapter 2. So Chapter 2 opens up. Zhao and Zuko are hunting Aang, and they're Team Avatar's training and they're bonding. the trap just happened, and now we're unwinding and we're preparing for Chapter 3. So I'm putting all this stuff before the Northern Water Tribe, mostly to get it out of the way and to elevate the focus in Chapter 3 to being at the Northern Water Tribe. So that's why I end on this scene in Chapter 2. And then we train 3, because now there's a nice little time jump of Zuko basically relaxing now as Aang has just been freed. So yeah, we get a bit of a sense of relaxation from the character. And that is really all I have for this Chapter 2 commentary. Chapter 3 is going to be quite a big one, so I'm going to now end this commentary here. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was informative. I know I talk a lot in these things. It might be hard to keep up. I do advise you to watch the edit before watching these if you'd like, and do watch the original film, because it'll be a little bit easier to keep up with some of the changes that I'm pointing out. So thank you all for watching. I will get the last one recorded shortly, and that's about it. Woo-hoo-hoo, Unicross out. Peace!